For the last 3 years, I've been making videos at my coffee shop. I had the idea that I should get out of there. The shop's been closed for a year, and I still had about a year plus on my lease. I had the idea I wanted to get out, and suddenly I got a knock on my door. Window, more precisely. A lady said she represents a doctor and he would like my place. My landlord contacted me, and I told him I would like such and such a number to prematurely exit my lease. And within 12 hours I had an eviction notice on my door. The terms were clear: either evict or open my coffee shop back up, because that's the only thing I was allowed to do. So I did. After doing more research than I would have liked on the law and my contract, I asked my landlord if we could settle this through mediation, as it was stated in my contract that any conflict would be resolved through mediation. And I want to shout out Leanne at the Brigham Young University. I was very, very happy with their free mediation service, and they were excellent. They did exactly what mediators should do: bring everything to the table so that both parties can feel comfortable with the deal without getting emotional and the deal falling apart. So now my lease legally ends March 1st. All my stuff is out of there. I've spent all week moving all my shit out in a snowstorm and minus 10 degrees. The perfect storm. Of course it would be. And in the end I will be selling the coffee shop or the equipment to my landlord. I'm kind of in an in-between state now. I've hastily moved into my new addition, even though it's not even finished. Happy to have it mostly finished. I was expecting at least another month, but that's how life is. I asked. I did say I wanted out. I didn't say how. And here I am, recording for the first time in over 3 years from my land, from 6,000 feet in the high desert. Thank you for being here, and welcome. And once I almost went to a nice school, and I was naive and thought I should go to school. And I walked up to the main counter and asked for some information and realized it was way too expensive, first of all. I could not afford it and had no grants or anything. And fast forward, I learned everything that I wanted to learn. At the time, I wanted to learn photography. And how stupid to go to school to learn photography. Because I ended up learning everything I wanted to know by reading magazines, seeing what tricks and techniques the photographers use to attain specific results. And maybe I spent $100 in magazines as opposed to 30 or 50,000 or whatever it was. But my point was, the school that I had innocently walked into, inquiring on an education, was in such a castle. This was the Westminster College in Salt Lake City. And we're told it's one of the oldest buildings in Salt Lake. And I've mentioned before that I've always had this feeling when I'm in old buildings. It's not until recently that I've begun to express and understand what I felt. But at that time I felt it too. I thought, what is this? This is not a college. Everything about it was strange. Even the idea of paying such a exuberant amount of money to learn photography, for example. But then I was in this castle. And what the hell was I doing in this castle? Why did this make any sense? And I walked out of there, but never forgot how strange the place was. And when I began doing this research, I became very excited and remembered this Westminster College. So we'll get back to the postcards, but let's look at this college for a moment. Here we are at Westminster College, Utah. This college was founded in 1875 in Salt Lake City as a prep school. At the time it was called the Sheldon Jackson College, named in honor of its primary benefactor and minister, Sheldon Jackson. In 1902, the name was changed to Westminster College. Originally located downtown, the college moved to its present campus on 27 acres in the Sugar House neighborhood in 1911, where it's still located today. And so this is the place where I would have walked in naively, and I didn't even realize it was 27 acres. And just across the street from this place is the Sugar House Park. And when we say park, of course, alarm bells begin to go off. And what was in this Sugar House Park at one point, before being demolished in 1950, was the state prison, the State Castle Prison. So one castle, founded in the late 1800s, this prison stood until 1950 in its castle-like glory, and then was demolished. And yet across the street another castle, this one that we're looking at, the Westminster Castle College, complete with millions of bricks, sandstone, and who knows what else. And mind you, I don't want to say it was built in 1875, because here even they tell us the truth. It was founded in 1875 as a collegiate institute. 1875, the Mormons arrived in the 1860s in a very primitive fashion. Horse, wagon, mules, oxen, roughing it across the West, many dying. And it's impressive enough that we have the beautiful state prison in the Sugar House Park, as we can see here. But within 10 years, they just threw this college up? Not even a Mormon college. Why must everything be a castle? Why must all the schools be castles? The prisons be castles? Armories? Insane asylums? And really, when you start to look at it from a big picture perspective, everything was castles. Just down the street we have the Salt Lake City Temple, which is a grand castle surrounded by smaller works of wonder. The Salt Lake City and County building opposing the temple, maybe 4 blocks away, is also a castle, perhaps even more beautiful, just a different style, just as this is a different style. And this is upon the inception of this, what we are told is a virgin city. And I'm telling you, they've begun omitting their little construction bit. They used to give us a little attempt or explanation of the construction, which was my favorite. It was like the comic section in the newspaper. But here I wanted to play Where Are We? It's been a while. Where could we be? A very similar architectural style. We have bicycles, bustling with bicycles. Perhaps this is a bank. These men seem very confident in their place in time. And this is in Japan, the Yokohama Bank. Next specimen, where are we? Antiquitech in the background, horse and buggy, some trolleys, and a very massive building. Excessively massive for these people who look like they're just barely getting by. Just my take and feel. Surely we could have cut this building in half. The doorway is at least 3 times, possibly 4 times the size of this man. And what function could such a building serve? But not the point. Where are we? Where in the world are we? How would we know? This building could be anywhere, with its glorious Corinthian columns. This is Argentina. In French, argent is money, and I see the word argent in Argentina, and somebody had money. And this one will be fun. A lot of hustle and bustle. Doorways again, 3 times the size of the people. Super elaborate and excessive. As if someone just had a blank check and told the builder to spare nothing. Where could we be in this early time period? Just rolling out with the first few models of automobile, it looks like, but still having some horse and wagon alongside. This is in a country that gave us the Buena Vista Social Club, one of my favorite bands, a great band to listen to on a Sunday. And this is Cuba. We've looked at star forts in Cuba and a coastline just riddled with absolutely advanced architecture. Even more advanced than this. But again, this could be anywhere. And how about now? This looks like some glorious kind of coliseum or stadium, circular amphitheater. Plus, we see a couple guys over here in the corner looking very serious. And I don't know about this street, looking very altered. The blurriness meeting sharpness so abruptly. And I think this baby is in ruins. If we look at this staircase, kind of seems broken and crumbled. Of course they would tell us it was under construction still. But I think it looks like it's in ruin. And where are we? What nation do you guys belong to? These 2 men over here, standing on a pyramid-shaped pile, I'm not sure. These natives are from Pakistan. This building, I think resembling one of the stadiums in New York, and resembling a lot of modern stadiums. We see this style repeated. And here we are in old Pakistan. And this one I'm gonna have to be careful with and not give it away too soon. Just amazing. And again, looking old. This looks so old it looks unused. And the tech and the metal work. This is so expensive. All of this would be so expensive to do today. That's why we use cheap wood and sheetrock and just face things with stone and half brick facing. It's so damn expensive, and this stuff is quality materials, right down to the core. And I don't know what's going on. There's all kinds of little apparatus sticking out here. Perhaps these are our flagpoles. Let's scroll down a little and give you a little peek. We see people struggling back here with water buckets on each side of the shoulder. And we see a rickshaw, a bunch of rickshaws. Here are the builders. Here are the builders. Hello, builders. How did you build all this? And these people can't answer us because they were all wiped out in Vietnam. Here is a theater in old Vietnam. And just to remind you, the true purpose of war. How completely clear could anything be from this image? Again, nothing special about this architecture, seen everywhere. It's when it's put in context. It's when some perspective is shown on this snapshot in time. This architecture and these people. I mean, these people don't even have horses. We're just pulling things around like we just invented the wheel. Here, this poor mule is just being pushed to the limit, pulling some sort of drum, some liquids, maybe just water. And here we go. These people just inheritors of this region, completely out of place. Vietnam. And here a beautiful, beautiful castle, looking like it's been abandoned for at least 50 years. And yet somebody seems to have excavated much dirt, just a mud pit all around it. but cleaned up. And look at this elaboracy. Again, someone with a blank check plus some. A good tip thrown on top. What? And just looking abandoned. Always a couple guys in suits in the corner. Perhaps this one is a woman. Just hanging out. Of course, we would be told this is post-construction, and these men are just waiting for the landscapers to arrive. Where could this be? This could be anywhere, and this could be anything. This beauty is in Africa, South Africa. Exactly what comes to mind when one thinks of Africa. This one's too difficult. If I show you too much, it's gonna give it away. And this baby is just crumbling. Look how chunks are just missing up here. It looks like it's really been stripped. Just hit with hammers and ornamentation just busted off. And look up here. Just be careful not to show you that flag. I don't know if it's me or... But nonetheless, let me show you another one. Okay, I have to be careful again. Where are we? Same place. I think this is that building we were just looking at. Oh, you can kind of see the flag. And I've shown this in a past video before. Just a massive chunk of building here. And a clock, and it just goes on and on. Where is this? Ta-da! This is China, or as I said in a past video, China. Unbelievable. And real quick, just another Chinese ruin right here. Simply the ruins. Some sort of cathedral. Okay. Where could this be? This is too innocent. Let's go a little hardcore. Here we go. Amazing. The Public Trust Office. And look at that. Tech antenna. And the thing just looks like shit, actually. Look here. It's like the facade is crumbling off, revealing the brick. Here I think the facade is barely holding on. And here too on the columns you can see how sections have either been painted, just touched up, the chunks were falling off onto the people. And here we do have automobiles, very early models, and some old tech lighting. Where could we possibly be? This is actually one of my favorite examples. Besides San Francisco and Salt Lake City being so young as states and then just looking like all this stuff found everywhere. This one is also very anomalous. Doesn't make any sense. This is New Zealand. And New Zealand. Horse and buggy, early time period. Sending prisoners off, we're told, to a remote area as a sentence. And then this, bone, this, suddenly so old and weathered and as glorious as any part of the realm. I was always told that they were very resourceful in New Zealand because they didn't have much supply and goods and they were forced to be handy. And I had even seen that with my own eyes. They were very resourceful and handy people. But when I see things like this, that doesn't make any sense. Clearly there was enough of everything back then to do what everybody in the world was doing. New Zealand. And let's do one more. I love this one. And this really held up well. And yet we see she's been through hell. The discoloration, the reds, the dark browns, the staining. And yet it's made of such excellent concrete that all this detail has held up. Unbelievable. Just glorious. And where could we be? We could be anywhere. This place is out in the desert, in an absolute wasteland. Formerly the site of a glorious civilization, we are told. The land was covered in palm trees. And currently this place is known for some of the largest pyramids in the world. This is Egypt. Not what you think about when you think about Egypt. And it's very fun to play Where Are We? Because it forces you to consider what you've been taught to think about places. And here's another old Egypt pick. And again, old Egypt. Very old. But not that old. And I could play this game forever, but for the sake of time, I think I'll leave it there. This last one is from Canada. And so once again, here we are, looking at similar style buildings, not only all over the world, but similar within one city. Salt Lake City is one of the best examples because it's one of the newest cities along with San Francisco. And both Salt Lake and San Francisco are chocked full of these same types of buildings, these old world wonders. And I think there's no stopping this awakening, especially with the internet. I think this understanding will continue to spread and grow for years to come. And there's an expression that says, change happens one death at a time. And it's a very patient approach, very Taoist and accepting. One just waits for change, one death at a time, and eventually those that pushed the old paradigm are gone, and the ones that are left have no strength left, no fuel, no ammo. They've been exposed, and they just let it go. But it's difficult to say. If people continue to get their information from the wrong sources, A, they will never even see things like this, and B, they will just believe whatever they are told. They'll never be taught to be critical thinkers. That is not what the system encourages. But I think the controllers have gotten so greedy in these last few years that this will ultimately be their demise. So greedy, squeezing every last bit of liberty and money out of the system. And surely they should have known that such things don't work. The parasite can't kill the host, or even make the host sick. That is not beneficial to either party in the long run. But I think all the lies that have been propagated for the last 150 years have been done in a very tight and controlled way, with a long-term plan, a 100-year plan. And this 100-year plan involves every nation in the realm. And we saw this in the last 2 years. How quickly did every nation jump in the boat together, massaging each other. All these nations that supposedly don't agree on anything just jumped in this boat without hesitation. And I've talked about other examples where they just jump in the boat, suddenly begin marinating as one, and that would be the Antarctic Treaty. Over 50 nations on board in complete unison with this treaty that nobody should be allowed to go to the southern regions of our realm. And here very similar. But my point is, I don't think they have a 100-year plan now. I think this is the end, and we have the third and fourth generation removed inheritors of the original controllers and creators of this plan. And now it's just done, and there's no vision, and they're sloppy, and perhaps stupider than we even know. And I do think they are sloppy. Again, their stories are comedy to many of us, repeating the same themes. And if one was just to scratch the surface of history, a little here, a little there, one may not notice these similarities of false narratives. Unbelievable, this one. These photos are from Stolen History, and my condolences to the family and loved ones of the kind man who passed recently. Very, very strange passing and very upsetting. So I think I'll leave it there today. Maybe I'll pop back in for a bonus. I was just gonna do 10 minutes here, and I was just gonna look at these pictures to stimulate my thoughts, some kind of backdrop, and I'm very tempted, but I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me, and do have a blessed day. Please like, comment. Oh, I forgot I don't say that anymore. I love you all. God bless. Next. Scratch that. In 1966. This video is not very serious, just a tour. Today we're going to look at cathedrals. This old cathedral. Welcome. So what do I plan on doing for the rest of my life? I think I'm gonna build houses. I've already built 3 or 4 over the last 20 years. Small homes. But with the price of a home these days, I think it's a worthy thing to build and sell. I'm not sure what I'm gonna share today. I wanted to share some meltage, and maybe I'll start with this. This is a little book that I made, never finished, just kind of laid it out. And here we have the Cathedral of St. Paul, Birmingham, Alabama. A brick building completed as a church in 1893. There we go. Here we have the Cathedral Church of the Advent, Birmingham, Alabama. The first was completed in 1873 but destroyed by fire, and the current one was completed in 1895. So the first one burns in a fire, and quickly they rebuild. There we go. And here we see something in Unalaska Island in Alaska. Just burying some people right on the side here. Seems a little close. And here again, another Alaskan wonder. St. Michael's Cathedral. Dome, super crazy spire here. This structure burnt down in 1966. Really excessive top. The top outdoing the bottom. Here we are in Little Rock, Arkansas, Cathedral of St. Andrew, the oldest place of worship in the city. It was built in 1881. There we go. The proud churchgoers here posing for the picture. A lot of debris and a really decorative roof here. Just pretty unbelievable. Here we are in Laramie, Wyoming. Wyoming to this day is as cowboy as it gets. Very few people and cities, just a lot of land. And here we have a cathedral in Laramie. Laramie's not even the big city. Here we go, all weathered and looking like an oil rig and a cathedral at the same time. It was established in 1868 and built from 1892 to 96. There we go, a cowboy wonder. Really castle-y over on this side. And here we have St. Mary's Cathedral in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Just a beauty. Really excessive tower over here with ventilation. And another old world wonder to the left back here. You can see the columns, kind of like a City Hall. And yeah, construction began in 1906. It was built by Moses Patrick Keefe. Go Moses. Here we are in Spokane, or I think they say Spokane, Washington. Cathedral of Our Lady Lord. Really excessive. And this seems like an afterthought, really. The brick church was constructed 5 years later, 5 years after 1881. Originally holding mass in a converted carpenter shop. Quite an upgrade. Here we are in Richmond, Virginia, the Sacred Heart Cathedral. So here we see kind of a hybrid. This looking like a city hall in the front, Greco-Roman design. And then we see all the elements of a cathedral. Domes, towers. It was completed in 1905. There we go. And here we are in Wisconsin. All Saints Episcopal Cathedral, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It was originally constructed as some other church in 1868, checkerboard floor, and otherwise very detailed but pretty modest. Here we are in Green Bay, Wisconsin, St. Francis, and where the clock's removed from here, the pressure gauges, a lot of ventilation in these towers, rose window. The cathedral was planned and erected between 1876 and 1881. It was designed after a church in Germany, actually. There we go, 1876. And here we have St. Mark's Cathedral in Salt Lake City. This is a stupid picture. I'll insert a better one. Really a little castle outside. This gives the impression that it's modest. But anyway, built in 1871, Salt Lake City. Here again, a Salt Lake City here. The Cathedral of the Madeleine. I really enjoy hanging out here. It was completed in 1909. If you'll remember, in a past video I sent my drone up here and there was all kinds of copper wire poking up, and here we are in Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Looks like there's nothing around this massive monument here in this really rundown looking cathedral with a very tall spire over here. It was built in 1870, that's it, in the Gothic Revival style. Really beautiful. And here in Detroit, Michigan, we see the St. Peter and Paul Church. And really from the bottom, this looks like it could be some stock exchange building, but then we're told it was a cathedral or a church. Construction was completed in 1848. Okay. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Looking really stout and top heavy. The St. James Episcopal Church, built in 1 year with walls of limestone. There we go. This photo looks like it was taken in the 60s. Could be wrong. And here the 16th Street Baptist Church, really seeming more like a factory. Otherwise there would be a little more symmetry, but these are all functional parts in my opinion. Building was completed in 1884 under the supervision of its pastor. What, he was a builder too? The city condemned the structure and ordered it to be demolished. There we go. Thank you, city, for your condemning so quick to pass judgment on this church. And here we are in West Virginia, St. Joseph's Cathedral. We see the interior, super over the top, 1850s. And they really packed them in tight here in these pews. Now let's jump over to California, Sacramento. A lot of wonders in Sacramento. And this is the Cathedral of the Blessed Sacrament. There we go. Now this is a real beauty. It was consecrated in 1908. I wonder what a consecration looks like. And she's really weathered, really stained, and lending to this vintage idea. A lot of staining around the ports. And here we are in Wisconsin, the Basilica of St. Josaphat. This just having all the elements. Beautiful dome, beautiful columns and entryway, 2 short towers. Unbelievable. Go Wisconsin. It was dedicated in 1901 by the Archbishop. We see windows, mud flooded, 1, 2, 3. Miniature rose window over this entrance. Of course, a larger one up here. Here we see a massive organ in Denver, Colorado, and a little assortment of rose windows here, and cheap seating in the center. Built in a year, 1891 to 92. Organ pipes included. St. Paul, Minnesota, Church of the Assumption. Now they're telling us the truth. We shall assume this church, and we shall call it the Church of the Assumption. Oh, that's a great idea. Yes, here we go. It was completed in 1874. The Assumption was complete. Knoxville, Tennessee. A little techie light hanging here in the foreground. St. John's. Very original naming. And this baby really looks top heavy. Look at this over to the left here. It's like the top of the building is at ground level. So there we go. Completed in 1892. The stubby, top-heavy cathedral. 1892. Now here we are, looking like Angkor Wat, but no, this is the St. Louis Catholic Church in Buffalo, New York. Boom. Teched out to the T. Here we have a couple people going to church on Sunday. I wonder if people sneak candy into church like they do the movie theater. This baby looks so stained and weathered, like it's gone through a great cooking. Love it. And we see a little clock here. And this was constructed in 1889. It's reputed to be the tallest spire ever built completely of stone without reinforcement in the USA. There we go, setting a record. Not just a place to worship God, but we're gonna break some records here. The tallest spire ever built completely of stone in the USA. Must be a great place to go to church. And here we are back in Wisconsin. A lot going on in Wisconsin. When the average American thinks of Wisconsin, we think of cheese and cows. But no, here is old Wisconsin. An old 1846. You could build a cathedral like this in Wisconsin in a year. There we go. Here's a Castle Church in Massachusetts. It was constructed in 1838 for $40,000 flat. There we go. A little castle, not very many windows. And how about Texas? What about the Cowboys of Texas? We have a Cathedral of Guadalupe. Really elegant house in the background. Big rose window. And it was built in 1902. Go Texas. Back to New York. Looks like there's a fire going on back here. St. Luke's Church. All these pictures look like they were taken in the 70s. And the churches are pretty abandoned. I mean, which one is it here? This one, I guess. This looking pretty mind-blowing too. Some old world apartment building over here. It was founded in 1817. The cornerstone was laid in 1824. The church was dedicated in 1827. There we go. 1827, really early period. I mean, where are you getting these things? Who is manufacturing and delivering all these materials? Here we can see the unlevel surface. And then we go to downtown New York City, and we have this St. Patrick's Cathedral. One of my favorite things that I saw in New York City. Just took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to see a building like this. So beautiful amongst the skyscraper cubes. Construction began in 1858 and completed in 1878. I'll put some better pictures in. And here we are in New Hampshire, St. Joseph's Church, Newham. And here we are in Portland, Oregon. What's all this sticking out? Tower here. Trinity Cathedral, consecrated again in 1906. Stained glass, tech all over it, and these mysterious things. Let me know if you know what these are. Portland, Oregon. Now we have Erie, Pennsylvania. This looks like a lithograph. Super beautiful and over the top. It was completed in 1893. Really beautiful rendering. This tradition seems to continue to this day. You can have architectural plans rendered in this fashion with the trees and everything. Really similar. Oklahoma City, we have the St. Paul's Cathedral. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the Cavalry Cathedral. This definitely looks older It was completed in 1889, and yet it seems like no photos are taken during the construction or completion. Based on the cars, these photos are taken way later, and the buildings are already abandoned and weathered. Just my opinion. Here we are in Cleveland, Ohio. Cathedral of St. John the Evangelist. Was that really necessary? Couldn't it just be the Cathedral of St. John? And this thing's huge, just a mind blower, taking up a few blocks. Again, a tower that seems kind of stubby. It was completed in 1852. Pretty poor picture here. And look at this, like a little hotel on the side, a little Holiday Inn. And here we are back in Texas. I love these old Texas, anything in the West really. But this is the Cathedral of St. Mary in Austin, Texas. Really beautiful and really weathered. And the weathering is just in a strange place. Like, this is really strange. Unless this was venting some kind of gas or, I don't know. Short columns here on the entryway. And big old rose window. Dedicated in 1884. And you have to realize that right alongside of these you have city halls. I could make this same presentation with city halls or courthouses. But today we're just looking at cathedrals. And this is a mind blower. And this is also absolute proof of why this building looks so top heavy. Well, you can see over here where my pointer is. There's a whole level. There's windows here that have been revealed. And it makes sense. It looks like it should have another level. And here they've excavated the windows, but left this mound all around. Absolute proof it's not just that they look top heavy. And that's why. In Helena, Montana. Hallelujah, Montana. I mean, talk about cowboy again. What year is this? This building had its first mass in 1914. There we go. Had its first mud flood mass somewhere in here. Unbelievable. Here we are in Portland, Maine. Look at the size of this domage in here. Here we see these people having a ceremony of some sort, perhaps consecrating something. Look at this. Look at all the statues up here. Portland, Maine, built in 1866. I mean, what a strange thing. 1850s up till the 1900s, just pumping out these works of wonder. Look at all the lights in here. That's another thing. A lot of these built before lighting. Here we see what looks like electric lighting. But 1866, you're gonna think about building something like this? Now we see Louisiana, Basilica of Immaculate Conception. I'm not sure how to say that. Natchitoches, Louisiana. Completed somewhere between 1900 and 1905. Construction began in 1857, but the Civil War put a stop to things for a little while. Here we can see Salina, Kansas, just a little cathedral. A cathedral here in Chicago. Really impressive tech on the inside here. Boise, Idaho. Really out of place for Idaho. It was dedicated in 1870, but destroyed in a fire 18 days later. The Lord didn't approve of the first one. Savannah, Georgia here. St. John the Baptist Cathedral. Alberta, Canada. Ottawa, Canada, super beautiful, and mud-flooded windows, very top-heavy. Holy Trinity in New Westminster, little hybrid castle. Another Cathedral of Assumption, and here's one in Toronto. Unbelievable here. This one is way over the top. St. Michael's Cathedral Basilica, consecrated in 1848. Again, Canada, British Columbia, Vancouver. I think these might be a couple oxen right here. Winnipeg, really beautiful. Almost World's Fair-like. Again, Winnipeg. If you'll remember a past video, I proposed Winnipeg might have been the castle-like city hub of North America. And here we are. These are just some random cathedrals. Again in Canada, very snowy on this day. Newfoundland. It kind of makes its own case. It almost really doesn't matter what I have to say. Those with eyes to see will see. But yeah, I'd like to look at a little bit of meltage. One of the most difficult things to try to explain is meltology. In one way, with an unobstructed mind, it's very clear to see, but it's a pretty heavy journey to introduce someone to. Thank God I'm not introducing anyone to the idea by now. Here we're looking at Petra. Petra is a great example, and most people are focusing on the pristine parts, but I often think it's more interesting to look at the less pristine. Here, for example, we see a pattern. Square column, cylindrical, and square. And down here we see what looks like square, column, and the edge. Perhaps another one here. And so we can begin to follow the pattern of the building in all directions. Here there was a chamber on this side, and here as well, but now it has rock curtained over. A thin veil of flowing material seals it shut. Here we can see the same thing, but a little opening remained. And perhaps people chipped this off, revealing the underlying intricacies, but otherwise we're told in history that some goat herders built this. And why bother with goats if you could build this? And one last little look up here, we see openings, and all of these will have been windows, doorways, now almost unrecognizable. And we have areas like this all throughout the realm. What we don't have is the pockets of preservation. Now, I think they existed. We have tales in the Grand Canyon of some pockets like this. And in North America, I think they become national parks, get cemented over, off-limit zones are put in place. So again, most people would focus on these central points, when I think everything around it is really where we need to focus. And here we're looking at stolenhistory.org, or net, now it's net. And there is one thing in particular that I want to show you, but I felt we just had to recap a little bit. This is a city in Turkey, apparently, and here we go. We would be told that they didn't quite finish it, perhaps. And here we're told this is a clock tower, and sure enough, a tower, a little roof, looks like a cooked out clock. Unbelievable. And so again, this flowing over the top, encrusting everything, and yet much has been preserved. Here again, great examples. The cooked crust on the top, but much preservation. Here we see something in great shape, and to the left and right it has been cooked out. Why some parts are preserved, I don't know. They're either preserved or unfinished, and if you think anybody was building this, I don't know what to say. Here again we can see excellent preservation, some heat damage here, and I think down below in many cases the damage is worse, as if water was involved with this extreme heat, changing the construct of the material. But anyway, let's jump to the part that I wanted to show you, and it has to do with these towers. These towers in this famous city, and these mysteriously collapsed and turned to powder. And everybody's seen the powder, but few people have seen these photos. Once they cleaned everything up, they were left with a big hole, and this is what we see, what looks like many parts of Utah, actually. Again, these are the towers. You can see a skyscraper in the reflection here. But yeah, these two famous buildings, and these are the remains. This is what we have, like some southern Utah here in New York City, in the basement. So there you go. However you think this happened, the byproduct has left some serene, scenic, what looks like a national park, Yosemite, some granite, millions of years old. But no, that is not what this is. So that's it for today. I thank you for watching. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you next week.
how everything was kept in-house by the mine owners, and anybody that bucked the system were arrested or kicked out or whatever. And that was a big eye-opener for me when I was doing the research for that ley line. I kind of knew, but I didn't. And then when it all showed up there, it's like,
Right.
holy cow, I mean, this is all along this alignment. The same type of system, and the mining of the minerals or
Well,
the
that's it. And
mills.
let me ask you then, because you know this a lot better than I do. What kind of time period do you think we're looking at here? These are the freshest mining marks seen. When you go further south and stuff, and they look, how can I say it? Like they were done a generation before. You know what I'm saying? They're much worn down and stuff like that. So, what time period do you think we're looking at here? Like maybe within the past 500 years? This
Easy.
stuff erodes pretty fast with all the trees growing and stuff in Appalachian.
I'm thinking the new system started somewhere around 200 years ago, 1700s.
Because I remember you mentioned some bad winters in Ireland, what, in the 1730s or 1740s? And like I said, I'm thinking the Methodist Episcopals have something to do with it also, because they started in a similar time period. And I think in that time period, all kinds of things started happening in this country too. So I do agree with you right there. As far as the megalithic stuff, then we have to be talking maybe 10 to 20,000 years before then, correct? Maybe even longer.
You're right. In the far distant past, and we don't know. We don't have that information anymore. We can just kind of look at what's there and try to make sense of it. Before we move on from this slide, what are the green lines? These green lines here, what are they?
Those are one of the first times I noticed those concave machine parts, you know what I'm saying, that look like the open pit mining marks. If you look at the left side of the lake on the western side, that's just a normal hillside. You look at the right side, and it actually looks sort of made, you know what I'm saying, like they carved it out. Like that basin was partially there, and they just carved out the hillside looking for minerals, and they kept the basin there. Okay.
Mhm.
Supply water. That's what the green lines are. And the red lines are just the spots where the indentions where they move the earth from to make the front of the dam. And I measured this. The dam is over 1.25 kilometers long. So that's a pretty big dam. It's about 600 kilometer or 600 meters wide.
Is that another view of the same place?
Yeah, I'm just doing the circular view, you know what I'm saying, on Google Earth, where you just turn around. But the reason I
How
wanted to do this, so you
everything
can
was
just see the
kept
shape of the dam itself,
in-house
and just
by
to
the
see, like I said, that
mine
dam
owners,
on the
and
east, or on the far right
anybody that bucked
side,
the
that was the
system
dam that was built
were
in the
arrested or kicked
1960s.
out
Okay, they started about
or whatever.
1963 or
And that was a big
1964.
eye-opener for
And
me
like I
when I
said,
was doing the research
when
for
you
that
look at
ley
that dam
line.
itself,
I kind of knew, but I didn't. And then when it all showed up there, it's like,
right.
holy cow, I mean, this is all along this alignment. The same type of system, and the mining of the minerals or
Well,
the
that's it. And
mills.
let me ask you then, because you know this a lot better than I do. What kind of time period do you think we're looking at here? These are the freshest mining marks seen. When you go further south and stuff, and they look, how can I say it? Like they were done a generation before. You know what I'm saying? They're much worn down and stuff like that. So, what time period do you think we're looking at here? Like maybe within the past 500 years? This
Easy.
stuff erodes pretty fast with all the trees growing and stuff in Appalachian.
I'm thinking the new system started somewhere around 200 years ago, 1700s.
Because I remember you mentioned some bad winters in Ireland, what, in the 1730s or 1740s? And like I said, I'm thinking the Methodist Episcopals have something to do with it also, because they started in a similar time period. And I think in that time period, all kinds of things started happening in this country too. So I do agree with you right there. As far as the megalithic stuff, then we have to be talking maybe 10 to 20,000 years before then, correct? Maybe even longer.
You're right. In the far distant past, and we don't know. We don't have that information anymore. We can just kind of look at what's there and try to make sense of it. Before we move on from this slide, what are the green lines? These green lines here, what are they?
Those are one of the first times I noticed those concave machine parts, you know what I'm saying, that look like the open pit mining marks. If you look at the left side of the lake on the western side, that's just a normal hillside. You look at the right side, and it actually looks sort of made, you know what I'm saying, like they carved it out. Like that basin was partially there, and they just carved out the hillside looking for minerals, and they kept the basin there. Okay.
Mhm.
Supply water. That's what the green lines are. And the red lines are just the spots where the indentions where they move the earth from to make the front of the dam. And I measured this. The dam is over 1.25 kilometers long. So that's a pretty big dam. It's about 600 kilometer or 600 meters wide.
Is that another view of the same place?
Yeah, I'm just doing the circular view, you know what I'm saying, on Google Earth where you just turn around. But the reason I wanted to do this so you can just see the shape of the dam itself and just to see, like I said, that dam on the east or on the far
Mhm.
right side, that was the dam that was built in the 1960s. Okay, they started about 1963 or 1964. And like I said, when you look at that dam itself, it makes no sense. It's damming up two streams, and one of the streams was in my valley, and it's so small you could jump across it in certain spots, and the other stream was no more than twice as wide. They dammed up two streams that do not need to be dammed up, is what I'm saying. It makes absolutely no sense what they did. And this dam was planned out in the 50s because I saw an old topo map from 1960. The dam was already drawn on that 5 years before it was made.
I'm sure there was a reason. I just don't know what it was. Talking about the hydrology being misused, I've seen a lot of examples of places being flooded that had infrastructure that they wanted to hide that would have been problematic to explain.
Most of the man-made lakes in West Virginia have towns beneath them. Most of them do. I've already looked that up.
Mhm.
Okay, they're gone. Also, another thing in this frame that I consider sort of important, but you're much better at this than me. You figure out, how can I say it, secondary meanings of words all the time. I grew up on Llewellyn Run. Everything else is around it is just Dudley, Pyle, Mods, Plum, just basic names. Llewellyn is a very unique name. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it because it is the only name like that in that entire area.
It's a Welsh name. I would know that. Llewellyn is Welsh.
Yeah,
Dudley, you were asking about ley lines. Ley at the end of that might be an indicator of something too. Dudley. And
I never even thought of that.
I was just going to say, there's definitely a shared coal mining history between Wales and West Virginia. So I have no idea what the tie-in there would be, but that comes to mind.
Well, I know this area back in the mid 1800s also had a lot of Irish people living here, a lot of Irish immigrants. They also died in the coal mines. So Ireland has a lot to do with this area. I don't know if you can go to the next one or not. Like I said, I can't remember what. I just wanted to go through this as much as possible. See, that's just another one that I just wanted to show you the lay of the land there. That when you look at that, that's the angle when I looked at it that it looked like one of those vitrified forts from Scotland. I know it may be pareidolia, but I'm wondering if those vitrified forts have maybe another function that we never thought of because this is shaped exactly the same as those Pictic forts, excuse me. My mouth is dry, where they have the oval shape and the road comes out of one side. It doesn't come out of the center or anything like that. So it's actually designed exactly like some of those vitrified forts. Though, like I said, I don't know if that's a connection or not. But also in this angle on the left-hand side, you see the cut of the land better. I know they planted trees there, but I also think the trees show where certain sedimentary structures might be hidden underneath the land. But I'm not sure because I don't know the history of that area that well. I know they
Yes.
planted certain pine trees there, but they never cut them.
Yeah, I think your observations are spot on. The landscape of North America is like the landscape of Great Britain, in terms of the megaliths and the alignments to the equinoxes and the solstices. And it's the same thing over here that is over in Britain. But over here, it's all covered up. And over there, at least they acknowledge that it exists. So, there could very well be a connection.
Well, plus, after all I've looked, Pennsylvania and I think West Virginia might be one of the few spots that you can still find that stuff now in the sense that, like I said, I spent hours looking through New York and Pennsylvania. And what I think I see, it's just not as obvious as this. You know what I'm saying? It just looks like it's been beat up a lot more. That's all. The reason I started in Pennsylvania, believe it or not, is there's no place like home. That lady, she lives in Slatington. That's the reason I looked in Pennsylvania and stuff. And like I said, I do see open pit mining marks in Pennsylvania that I think are that, but they're just much more worn down.
This is a good example. I agree with you.
Well, go on to the next slides then. Let me see. Okay. Now on the far left, the yellow, all I did was I circled, whoops, the one before that. Well, actually, you know what? That's not a bad picture either if you stay on that, because what I did is I circled the dam. Okay, the dam is circled in both these pictures, but you can see on the left circle, that's just normal erosion. The middle circle is the dam. And on the right is where it just looks like somebody blew it up with these open pit mining machines. They just went bonkers. And the reason I'm thinking that is if you look at all those little convex circles, concave circles in the ground, they're all about the same size. I found a couple areas in West Virginia where I see these huge amphitheaters, which I don't need to show you right now, but they're huge. They're like double or triple these sizes. But most of them are about the size of what you see in that large blue circle. That's why I think it looks like mining to me. And also, you can tell that it was very easy for them to log it because those logging roads, they just basically took the timber all out of there. That's what those lines are, I think, are just timber roads. you can see, like I said, the places that are not eroded, it's still perfect. It's still pristine. The valleys are V-shaped. And then you just go east of there, then boom. What do you think?
I'm going to spend some time and zoom in on some of these places that you're sharing. But like I said, the people that were behind this, that were profiting from it, there must have been something pretty valuable there for them to go after it like that.
The reason I started really getting into this was because of that one video about Cripple Creek. I can't remember her name. She's a friend of yours.
Yeah, Stephanie's.
She does all this stuff about music. Thank you. Yes, yes. Stephanie McPeak, right?
Yep, McPeak Peterson.
And the thing is when I saw all that stuff around Cripple Creek and then I saw all the mining marks here, it's like, holy crap, you know? And then you just start putting this stuff together. That I would not even mind if you could prove me wrong. I just want to get to the answer here. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's just areas that just look like they dropped a bomb on it. That's all, you know? And that's why I also, when I was looking at her Cripple Creek video, that's also when I started thinking about, that was, I think, a little bit after I started thinking about dust bowls and stuff like that. And that's when it all came together. And that's why I think something like this, could you imagine the amount of dust this would create, especially during a dry summer? Well, the second picture that I sent you about that school in Marion County, you know, with the left side that seemed like it had windblown sand on it or whatever, that was supposedly built in 1912. The other school, the mud flood was flat, totally flat, like it was in a plane. That was built in the 1870s. So we're talking about a timeline maybe 150 years ago for some of this stuff. And that's what I'm saying. Up here I live, there's churches that look exactly like that one school where it looks windblown. And then the side, how can I say it? One church just in a town
All right,
that's
I'm
5
off here.
miles from me. The whole side is just dug out to get to one
Have a good
door.
day.